Welcome back to the Mail Right Show. We are graced with the presence of Kristina Smallhorn. She is a real estate rock star. She is a YouTube rock star. She currently has a YouTube channel with 86,000 subscribers. She also runs her own Facebook group on how to do what she has already done on YouTube. We are super excited to have her here today. Kristina, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself directly to the audience?
Well, I'm glad you gave me about 3,000 subscribers more than I actually have. I have 83,000 subscribers. I've been doing YouTube since like 2017. And in 2019, I kind of like cracked the code on how to actually get views and business from YouTube. I always was getting business from it, but after 2019, I was able to ramp that up by a lot, with a lot of help. So I'm in Louisiana. Yeah, I'm in Louisiana. I'm a real estate agent in Louisiana, and I send out a lot of referrals throughout the United States.
Wonderful. So for all of those people who are listening, and John, I'm going to introduce you in a second, but I want to mix the show up a little bit. So if, let's say, somebody was inspired just based on this introduction to try to, let's say, get in touch with you to trade referrals, how would you like them to do that?
Well, I have this YouTube group, that your real estate YouTube mastermind on Facebook. And whenever I have a lead that I can't find a person for, I will put it in the mastermind group and I will say, look, if you're a real estate agent within this area, give me a call. But there's a caveat. You have to have a YouTube channel. You can't just like grab leads, like you can't just grab the leads from me. You actually have to have a YouTube channel and a YouTube presence for me to give you a lead.
Amazing. So for our listeners, for those of you who are my followers, I have been recommending this YouTube channel since I came across it almost a year ago. I strongly recommend that anybody who's listening and interested in YouTube, see if they will let you in. I've been lucky enough to be let in myself, and I have constantly learned and constantly contributed to the channel when time is permitted. So having said all that, John, my co-host extraordinaire, the creator of the Mail Right Show and the Mail Right Lead system, is a WordPress developer extraordinaire. He's done some really cool things for real estate. So John, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Oh, right. Thanks, Robert. Yeah, it's like what Robert said. I'm the founder of Mail Right. It's a platform that generates quality leads and much, much more affordable. We're a close team and we're dedicated in getting you the kind of results you're looking for. If that sounds interesting, go over to mail-right.com, have a look at what we got to offer, book a free consultation demo with me. It will be done personally by myself, and we hope that you join the tribe and join Mail Right. Back over to you, Robert.
Thank you, John. So my name is Robert Newman. I am an anomaly in the real estate industry. I focus on SEO and inbound marketing strategies, which kind of tend to focus on long-term value other than the short-term syrup that so many other real estate lead generation companies do. But regardless, what I really focus on, and why I'm excited to talk to Kristina, is I focus on the value of information and how you present that to the world and perhaps turn that into something that you can start a conversation with. So Kristina, without any further ado, with this huge audience that you have, John served up the first topic to me prior to us going live. How do you feel about the state of the real estate market as it exists today? That is the topic, right, John? I got the question right. Okay.
Well, currently I have to say that this is probably one of the craziest real estate markets that I have seen in my lifetime. I was new to the real estate business when the first housing crash hit, and it was very clear on what was going to happen. They had given out these crappy loans. People are doing this interest only nonsense. Nobody had any skin in the game. You had stated income. Of course, it was going to fall apart. What people don't know is that loan package had been available for eons before it actually became one of these things that was like everybody got a loan on it. And then, sure enough, took us 10 years to get out of that nonsense. Now we're seeing this thing where housing prices are going up exponentially. And there's a few reasons for that. I'm actually going to be doing a video on this really soon, but it isn't just the supply and demand. Of course, that's one of the problems, but there's some other little things that people don't know about, especially in major cities. I know that some people are like, there is going to be no crash. It's always going to, real estate's going to be fine, quit doing this. But these numbers, these prices are not sustainable. And so whenever you get them off the blog post that they're writing, or you're talking to these analysts behind the microphone where they have it on mute, they're like, these prices can't last. But whenever they're talking on screen, they're saying something completely different. And I guess it's because they're trying to project the fact that the image that the housing market is fine because they want to continue to get people to buy houses. I don't know. I think that the supply will definitely increase this coming spring because more people are getting vaccinated and they're feeling more comfortable about opening their house up to strangers. I think a lot of the supply problem was like people were thinking about selling and they're like, yeah, I could sell, but I don't want a bunch of people in my house, this is the wrong time. So
Gotcha.
I think the supply will increase. I do. And I do think that there's going to be a foreclosure crisis, not this year, maybe at the end of 2022 into 2023, as the moratoriums, I'm sorry, not the moratoriums, but the forbearances come due. There's going to be people that don't have jobs. There's going to be people that haven't paid and can't catch up. And I think there's going to be an issue. That's my personal belief.
All right, John, what do you think?
Well, I think I've been really interested in the things you've been saying on your channel. I think it's just an extremely confusing situation. I think you are probably right. It really, what is the variable is how big that adjustment's going to be, and really that's out of our hands. That's in the hands of federal government. This situation is artificial as it is because it's been totally caused by enormous of amounts of money being pumped into the economy. But that money only really benefiting the top 10 or 20% of the population. And that enormous injection of money has been we've seen hyperinflation, but only in certain assets. And that inflation pressure has been seen in housing because of the liquidity that's been pumped into the economy. Fundamentally, but the only problem with those that, that's like me and you, and I was saying to you before the show, I'm a great lover of Ken McRoy, his videos as well, is that the only problem with our position, Christina, is that we don't know what the federal government, because they seem like a one-trick pony. They're like they're a one-trick pony. Their only answer to anything is just to print more money and give it to the top 20% of the population. That seems to be their only solution for anything.
And this is what makes it even more alarming. So housing prices are as high as they've ever been in a long period of time in most areas. Some areas have gone up 25% from the year before. And investors are still buying houses. And do you know why? Because they want to get their money into real assets and out of they don't want cash anymore because they're like, cash is becoming more and more worthless. So this is not a good thing. And what people don't realize as well is that for the poorest of America, those people that live in manufactured homes are the same people that would have really benefited from the mortgage moratoriums, and they would have really benefited from the rental moratoriums, but they didn't get that because they have something called a chattel loan, and chattel loans didn't get that reprieve. And since a lot of them are renting the land underneath that, they still had to pay the lot rents. And those are the same people that were most likely to lose their job or go down to one income. what are those people supposed to do? So do you know what happens is the investors just come and scoop them all up and they make a mint. So the poor get poorer and the rich get richer. And to me, it's like a deck of cards. We were just holding it together. I'm just waiting for one big blow and it's just all going to fall apart. To me, there's a financial great divide that has happened and it's getting bigger and bigger. The middle class is non-existent. It's just either you're poor or you're rich. That's my opinion.
All right. Well, I'm gonna throw.
Let's disrupt the show up, and we'll see what will happen next week. On that, I think I wouldn't quite put it in that terms, but I think the fundamentals, you are correct. I think there is going to be a readjustment because I think to reinflate it much more would need such an enormous figure that even the Biden administration would take a second look. Basically, it would be such a shocking thing. I think, yeah, good.
His proposed plan, though, before he was elected, was to give a $15,000 tax credit to her first-time home buyers. What a stupid plan. We don't have any houses available. So now you're going to increase what people could have afforded as a first-time home buying for $15,000. Now that's going to even make them even out of the ballpark even further. We do not have the supply of houses to allow for that to happen. Like that was just a dumb.
Yeah, but as you know,
idea.
I don't know if you saw Ken's last YouTube episode. He points out that the National Real Estate Association says that a healthy supply is about 6 months supply. And at the present, we got less than 2 months supply by his figure. But about a year ago, we had about 3 months supply, and that's gone down to almost 1.5 months supply. And then when you look at all the people that are upside down on their mortgage and the other factor, even if you just cut that by 50%, you're really generous. You cut it by 50%. By government intervention, that basically they enable people to kick the problem down the road a bit more. There still leaves with 1.5 million people that won't be able to kick it down the road. You bun that, you end up with a figure of over 1 year supply of housing, and if you get to that figure, you will have a sizable reduction in price. And I follow his logic. So I don't see a total collapse because I just don't think the government would allow that. But on the other hand, I don't think the government could pump enough money to stop a adjustment. So I do think there's an adjustment, but how big that adjustment, will it be similar to what you saw between 2008 and let's say 2013? I would doubt it because I don't think the government would allow that. Its ability to stop any adjustment, I doubt it. That's my. But you don't want to listen to me, ladies and gentlemen, because I am no advisor.
I'm not a financial advisor, but I do want to ask you this: what do you think? What would you consider a crash? What amount of equity would someone have to lose in their home for you to consider it to be a real estate crash?
Well, it depends who it affects, because the banks are really, that's why they've been asking a lot of people for a 20% deposit, and the government's been asking for that. So I think we're looking at an adjustment of between 20 and 30%. If it looks like it's going to get a lot worse, because without the government re-entering the market again to subsidise it, which they're going to be forced to do, I could see it going down by 50, 60, 70%. I could easily see that. But I think the government is going to enter it, but it will still mean a reduction between 20 and 30%.
And that would be a crash to you.
That would, that would be an adjustment in price.
Adjustment. You won't say a crash.
Well, I call a crash if they wouldn't intervene. The market has gone above 208 levels. It's only government intervention, as it is, that maintains it. If the government wasn't prepared to do anything, it would actually, I could see it getting worse than the 208, 209 crash. I could actually see prices going at its lowest level, going below, because the market is so inflated. But in political terms, the government could not allow that to happen.
Okay.
I'm going to throw in another opinion here, guys. So
everybody has them.
Everybody's got them. So I do think that the market, I agree with the adjustment assessment. I don't know that I agree with all the math. I can tell you though, as I'm not sure how long you've been selling real estate, Kristina, but I've been in the real estate marketing industry since 2007. I actually got in at the middle of the crash and was running away from the mortgage industry at the time and got into technology. But my bad luck was I got into technology for real estate. So there was nothing happening. Like my clients, which were people like you, if you're selling real estate, didn't have any money because the banks weren't able to make notes on the homes that they were selling. So it didn't matter if you had a transaction or 10 or 15, you couldn't get them financed. There was no banks lending for those homes, which is what ultimately led to the real estate crash, is that you really couldn't get the financial institutions to make a movement, or if you could, it was almost always like a private arrangement that was specialized. All the big banks were closed down almost universally. So I don't see that happening. The banks are fine. They're going to continue to write loans. What I do think is happening is I think that real estate is wildly overpriced. And I can't speak to Louisiana because I don't live there and I'm not tracking that market. But I can speak to California, which is where I'm currently located. And our property prices are, the house that I moved into, I want to say 7 years ago, was priced at $335,000. It is now worth $775,000. It is a 1,500 square foot bungalow. So if I went out to sell today, this little house that I couldn't sell in Louisiana for $75,000, no joke, would be worth $775,000. It is ridiculous. It is. I mean, I love my house, but it's not a $775,000 house. It's just not. It's not $1 million home. Yeah.
But and you live in California, and what is happening to all these major cities like Austin, Texas, Dallas, Texas, around Phoenix, Arizona, even New Orleans, all these major cities have had an influx of Californians coming in because you sold your house for $300,000 over what you purchased it for. You have cash in hand, and like these Californians are driving up the market price exponentially to the point where, like in Austin, in some areas, it's just absolutely insanity what people are getting for their houses, over asking price, paid in cash, because they have these very cash heavy California buyers. I don't blame the sellers for taking either. Like, you want to pay me more than my house is worth, have at it,
So Kristina, before we go for our break and we go on the more happier topic of YouTube, just before we go to a break, can you just give us a brief what you feel in your heart is going to happen to the real estate market in the next 1 year to 18-month period?
I believe that by the end of the summer, we're going to start seeing a not cooling effect, but at least more supply of homes on the market. I believe after June, when the moratoriums are done with the mortgages, or not, I keep saying moratoriums, forbearance is done with the mortgages, that we'll have an increase of people that don't have a job that cannot pay. And that's going to take months for foreclosures to get into the gears of banks. And so I do believe there's going to be a lot more foreclosures, but one thing that people don't realize is that a lot of these major cities like Austin, Texas, and all these other areas, is that you're not going to see a lot of those foreclosures, because do you know who's buying them? the big tech companies, and they're renting them out to their employees. So I don't know if you're counting on the fact that there's going to be a wave of foreclosures. I just don't see it in the next couple of years. It could possibly happen in 2023. I am hopeful that some intervention will be done and we will skate through this once again. I just hope it doesn't take 10 years to get through it like we did the last time, because it was 10 years.
John, before we go to break, I want to finish my thought. So for those of you who are listening, I've said this in emails to my followers. I'm going to say it directly on the show. I think that 2021 and into 2022, we're going to see record years in real estate. I personally believe that we're going to continue to see absolutely historic highs. I think that what Kristina said about people becoming comfortable showing their home is probably 50% of what is currently dragging the market down, a lack of available inventory. And the moment the vaccine gets fully distributed, I believe that a lot of people who've been sitting on the fences are going to look at property prices, are going to get comfortable, and they're going to put their homes on the market, which is going to give us a glut of inventory right in the middle of this year that we're in. So just in a few months is what I believe. Then we're going to see a record number of transactions, because I personally know 10 or 15 people that can't buy a home right now because they can't find anything that they can get their hands on. So there's a lot of people who've been trying to buy who can't, because they're getting outbid, as Kristina said, by people. I'm on the phone with realtors every single day, Kristina, and I know you are talking to them too inside the group, because I follow those conversations. So my clients directly are telling me that they've got buyers offering $50,000 above list and are getting rejected. So those people are still out there looking for homes. They've got money in hand. It's not like they're going away. They're probably just getting more aggravated and more interested in buying a home. So when something comes up, they're going to snap it up. And we got a lot of that momentum, that high leveraged momentum going. Now, beyond that, I do think that we're probably looking at an adjustment, because the country needs one. That's my simple philosophy. It's not a matter of, I'm not going to look at all the numbers and things that you guys look at. I'm just going to say we need an adjustment. Actually, it's not going to hit our profession, all of ours, very well. But then again, you got to look at the people and what they need. And people need affordable homes to get into. That's the bottom line. Like, everybody here, except for me, is a homeowner. And so I know you are probably, and I know John is for sure. So you got guys like me who have the income, who can't buy a home right now, and at some point you got to give us an opportunity to get into the market, because I don't have $1 million.
So shall we go for our break, Robert?
Yeah, let's do it. All right. So ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be back in a few minutes. We're going to move on to the topic of YouTube, which Kristina is an unqualified expert in. She is really one of the very, very best in this category. She's done more. If you're looking at actual, what has she accomplished? She's probably in the top 2 or 3% of producers that I am personally aware of that make video for YouTube. So I'm super excited to get into this. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Well, welcome back to the Mail Right Show, ladies and gentlemen. We are here with Kristina Smallhorn. We are going to get into talking about YouTube, and we're extremely excited about it. So John, since you were kind enough to pre-plan for the show, why don't you serve up the first question?
Yeah, so Kristina, you said yourself that you've been YouTubing, I think you said from 2017, but you said it was only when you got around 2019, I think in your own words, you said you cracked the code of YouTube. What is that code? Could you give us some insights of what that road to Damascus moment was that enabled you to build your YouTube channel?
So let me preface this by saying that I had a lot of help. And so I won a contest where I got to meet with a YouTube coach who represents some of the largest channels on YouTube. And he looked at my channel and he was like, yes, you've done all the SEO research. This is a perfect SEO channel for YouTube search. I'm like, thank you. How come I'm not getting any views? And he said, because you're a perfect SEO research channel. And I'm like, oh. And I'm like, well, okay. So what do I need to do? So he said, you really need to focus in on your audience. You basically have a spaghetti against the wall method. His name's Daryl Eves, by the way. I'm not going to hide his name, Daryl Eves. He says you have a spaghetti against the wall method. You're just kind of keep putting out more real estate videos, but none of them are connecting to one another. Really speak to that one ideal audience member. Talk to the camera just like you're talking to them, and tell them exactly what they need to hear about real estate, instead of doing something about sellers and something about buyers and something about owning a home and something about maintaining your home. You're all over the place. Focus. And so I started focusing. He told me to really concentrate on my video titles. I was doing this thing that a lot of YouTube coaches will tell you to do, which was keyword stuff, or double title your videos. Total nonsense. Stop doing that nonsense. Like, tell people what the video is about and make a good title where people are going to click on it. And then the thumbnail. I have to tell you, and I'm being completely honest, real estate agents are probably one of the worst niches for thumbnails in the world. Terrible. Everybody has the same thing where they throw their one picture, their face on one side, and they throw a bunch of words on the other side. And I learned that if you can convey a thumbnail without using any words whatsoever, you've won the thumbnail game. If you can convey that title in that thumbnail without using any words on the thumbnail, you've won, and then, just learning and studying.
Well, what do you reckon, Christina? Do you think I've got an expressive face?
Absolutely. Absolutely. There isn't a person in the world. Like, everybody always says, I don't know if I look great enough on camera. Who gives two flying poops? Not everybody is like model perfect. I know that I'm not. I don't give a crap. I'm over, I'm over 45. The youth bug has like left the building, and I get it. So who cares? I'm throwing in some good lights and call it a day. And if anybody has a problem with me, whatever. But I don't really necessarily like my voice either. And I'm a goofball. So I try to be as honest with people as possible. And when I mess up, I tell them that I messed up with something, and I'm just as real as I could possibly be with my audience. That's what I do. I enjoy YouTube very much. It's a puzzle. And every time you think that you've really like cracked the code, there's some videos that I'm like, oh, this one's going to do great. And it does poop. So you really have to step back, look at your analytics, and see what happened. Was it the beginning of your video that made people click off? Was it the middle of your video that made people click off? What was it about that video? Is it the thumbnail? Is it the title? What was it? And if anybody tells you it was the tags that you used in your, it's the tags, it's a tag. No, it's not the tags. That's horse pucky. The tags literally that came from YouTube itself. The tags are literally the very last thing out of all the sea of information that YouTube uses. The tags are literally the last thing, very last thing.
I agree with all of that. I'm going to say one thing. I'm going to add something on, or maybe I'll phrase it in the form of a question. So I've been very blessed, Christina. I've had a chance to talk to YouTube influencers well before it became popular. One of my oldest consulting clients is 10 years old, and he made a mint off YouTube while most real estate agents were looking at him and me like we're absolutely off our fucking rocker. So because nobody thought, he's in the hyper luxury segment of the market. Mm-hmm. So, and he's in LA. So this is the place that everybody thought, even if YouTube worked, it's going to work someplace else. It ain't going to work here. It's not going to work here for hyper luxury leads. And they were wrong. But here's the thing that I felt then, I've proven, I think, which is, you mentioned something about lighting. You mentioned something about your age. You mentioned something. And if I don't know what you get in your consultations with real estate agents, but in my consultations, I'm constantly being hit with what John hit us with. Do you think I have a noteworthy face? It's like, here's what I've always felt. Concentrate on your message. Concentrate on figuring out something that you're very passionate about talking about, that you feel like you're an expert in, something where you really feel like the information that you've got will be helpful to somebody watching the video. I swear to you, and my opinion, and I want to hear what yours is is that if you hit the right note in terms of the information, yes, there's going to be a certain number of people that turn off the video because maybe you're not young and hot, or there's going to be a certain number of people that may turn off the video or engage with the video because you're not young and hot. Regardless, I feel like people connect with the information first and the energy of the person second. And if those two things are in place, you're going to be successful. What do you think?
There's two things I want to say. That there are successful channels that never show their face. They do a lot of voiceover work, and they have successful real estate channels. So if you're just that mortified that when you get in the camera, because my husband is one of these people, when he gets in front of the camera, for some reason, he sound like he has like that dead stare and he's completely dead inside and his voice sounds just as dead. So if you're happy and you can get across it without like looking in a camera and you can just talk to the microphone and give that information with lots of B-roll footage, then just do it that way. I mean, if that's the way that you can get your message across, do it that way. I know that a lot of real estate coaches will say, oh, but your face is your brand. No, I mean, no, it's not. It doesn't necessarily have to be that way. It's just kind of like the same thing with thumbnails. Everybody was like, oh, you have to put your face on every single thumbnail. That's what the YouTube coaches would say, the YouTube real estate coaches. You have to put your face on there. That's your brand. Well, that's hogwash, because I have plenty of videos with over millions of views that do not have my face on it because people want to hear about the house. They could care about two flying flips who I am. And that is another thing, is that you have to take your ego out of it. If you are one of those people that you're totally in love with yourself and you want to like, I'm going to be all over it. Well, guess what? Nobody really cares who you are and how many houses you sold and what your GCI is and your ROI, and nobody gives two flying flips. Just stop talking about yourself and give them the information that they want. And that's a thing that always cracks me up. I
think that's a good place for us to wrap up the podcast part of the show, Robert, and go on to the bonus content.
All right. So ladies and gentlemen, it's been an amazing show. We've talked about the state of the market. We hope that you're not too depressed. And then we've talked about YouTube. Christina, I hope you'll stay on for an extra 10 minutes because I'd kind of like to ask you some questions like brand new agent. How do you brand yourself on YouTube? That's the topic. If you're willing to stay with us a few extra minutes, that's what I'd like to talk about.
Sure.
Lovely. So for those people who are tuning in, I already asked this question originally. I'm going to ask one more time. Christina, how would you like people to get in touch with you? Because I know if I was a real estate agent, I would be trying to.
I do have a Facebook group that I run with Malcolm Lawson, and it's called Real Estate YouTube Mastermind. It's you don't have to, buy a course or anything like that. And everybody in there is real estate agents that are willing to help one another out. We talk about our thumbnails and our titles, and we work together. Even on our lighting, like as long as I've been in this, doing YouTube, I still couldn't get my lighting quite right. And I finally got it right in here, but that's because I had a relationship with all the other real estate YouTubers in there. So join it. It's fun. It's free. And a lot of them have said this is the only reason why they come on YouTube is because of our group. Come on Facebook is because of our group about YouTube.
So I'm gonna throw in here, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and John, this is the most helpful, most profitable group that I'm currently aware of. I think that I've watched more real estate agents make more money than any other group that I've ever been a part of. And I'm part of most of the big ones, Wailopo Success Community, Lab Code Agents, you name it, I'm part of most groups. This one is the one where I really watched the needle get moved for agents trying to do something different. And the best part, in my opinion, is it's leveraging video, which even if you took YouTube off the map, video is still the wave of the future in terms of the way that people are buying and selling almost anything, actually. It's not just real estate, but specifically for real estate. So please go join the group. John, as long as they'll let you in. John, if somebody wanted to reach out to you.
Do you think Christina's going to let me in?
No, because she's smart. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just joking. I'm totally joking. Of course she's, I don't know. Ask her. So my man.
Be generous. Let me in.
Robert,
please, sir, can I have some more, please?
Some more girl.
Porridge. All right.
Robert, I have a question for you.
Sure.
I have a question for you. Can we
wrap up the podcast part of the show, then go on to the question of the bonus?
Yeah. Hold it for 1 second, John.
Okay.
Hit us up with how we get a hold of you.
His best way is just go to the Mail-Right website, and you can either contact me through the contact form, phone me up, or book a demo. It's really easy to get hold of me.
And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, should you want to learn something about SEO or inbound marketing, if you have a burning question about any platform that's out there, Sync, Bold Leads, Boomtown, if you want to know what my take is on YouTube or how I consult with my clients for free in order to leverage YouTube, you can find out all of that information and much, much more at inboundrem.com. And I'm going to emphasize, it's just an informational resource. I strongly recommend that anybody listening to the show goes ahead and leverages it. All right, with that, we're going to wrap up the podcast part, and then I'm anxiously awaiting the question that Kristina has. We'll catch you in a moment for those of you who are going to join us on video on the mail-right.com website or YouTube channel. All right, so we're back. It's video time. We're on YouTube. Kristina, hit me with your question.
Okay, my question to you is, when your friend was doing YouTube and they told them that they were crazy, when was the turning point? Because when I was doing it in 2017, I was in a lot of real estate video groups, and they kept saying, don't waste your time on YouTube. Just throw your video up there. That's just for a long-term game. You're never going to get any major traction from it. You really need to stick to Facebook and Instagram. And they kept drilling that in. I'm like, no, if a 16-year-old kid could sit behind a television screen and play video games and have millions of views, there's something more to this. But they were like, that's never going to happen for the real estate niche. Now, of course, everybody's changed their minds since they saw that I stuck with it, and it really has brought my business to a new level. Sure. What was the changing aspect for your friend's channel that in your specific area?
Well, I'm going to answer that question, but that friend, whose name is Christoph Chu, was kind enough to come on to the podcast and kind of share his history. I've linked to you the blog post that I built around the podcast. And I would love it if you would maybe take a listen, because he tells it so much more compelling than I'm about ready to tell you. But I know Christoph and have known him for a decade. And Christoph just kind of set his mind on the fact that he was going to be a video influencer before there was such a thing. I'm not kidding. There was nobody doing it. There was no person that you could point to that said, this is going to work. And it didn't work for him. He made no money off it, no leads, no anything for the first couple of years that he tried. But his first sale, which he tells the story of that sale on our podcast, was $26 million. And I think at that point, what was like a goal-driven theoretical thing, because he believed, as did I, that whether or not everybody else realized it, that video was going to be the wave of the future. But it wasn't the future yet. 10 years ago, YouTube was not what YouTube is today. It was not the second largest search engine. It wasn't any of those things. And so I believe personally, it was just a strong and fundamental belief that, that video is the way of the future. I think 2 years into it, when he was proven right, I think he doubled and tripled and quadrupled down, of course, on video, and it made all the difference in the world. But I don't really know for sure is the answer. I think, though, if I had to guess, it was simply that. And then, of course, he got all of his inquiries for the TV shows that he got asked to do. They all came off YouTube. I think that real estate agents don't realize that when you see an agent in LA that gets a show, like Peter Lorimer, who's been on this show, Christoph Chu, who's been on this show, they have oftentimes been scouted because somebody's looking at you and going, does this person have a personality that we can use on our show? How do you decide that? In the past, it was they did a casting call. It's not what they do anymore. They go to YouTube and they look on YouTube and they go, is this person got good information? Do they present themselves professionally? do they have charisma, which Peter Warmer has like in spades. And then they offer you show.
But is he as good looking as me though, Robert?
Of course not. Nobody is, man. You're the fucking, you know, that you're the Johnny Depp of the real estate world. No, I don't even know what I'm saying.
Christina's just looking at me. I'm sorry, Christina.
So yeah. So let's talk a second about the question that I served up while John composes himself. Work hard at that there, buddy. So Christina, you're crying. Christina, listen. If you were a brand new agent, I know you actually dispense this advice all the time. I'm just asking you to do it online on our show. What would you tell a brand new agent getting onto YouTube? Like, what approach on branding or content? What is the elevator presentation that you have for the hundreds of agents that ask for your advice?
If you're starting a brand new channel, you have to find out, you really have to figure out who you want to speak to. Do you want to speak to home buyers? Do you want to speak to home sellers? And that, you've got to figure that out first. And mine was basically finding affordable housing options for the most forgotten about Americans in the United States. So that was easy for me because I have a compassion and heart for those type of people. So that comes off very easily for me to record because I'm like talking to them because I understand where they're coming from. And that's, you have to put yourself in their shoes so you can speak to them. I think the other thing is that you have to stay focused on that person. I know that there's all sorts of different aspects when it comes to real estate, but when you start splitting up your audience into buyers and sellers, that is not going to work for you. Javier Vandana is one of the top real estate agents that I know on YouTube that's working at a high level, and he only speaks to first-time home buyers. His focus is home buying, first-time home buyers. He talks about different kinds of loan plans. He talks about, he speaks to those people, and he has a successful channel because of it. You have to keep focused and don't get wrapped up in a lot of the nuanced stuff. Does your channel banner make a difference in somebody actually watching one of your videos? No, it really doesn't. It's nice to have a nice channel banner, but that's not the end all be all. The end all be all for a successful channel is to have successful videos, and you need to speak to those people in those videos, and then they'll subscribe. I think a lot of times we get kind of stuck with there's a pattern that a lot of people follow, because this is what was taught to us, is that at the beginning of a video, you say the title of the video, like today we're going to be talking about the 10 ways to buy a house in Philadelphia. And then you run the intro, and the intro is like 15 seconds long. And then after the intro, you could say, oh, my name is Kristina Smallhorn, and today we're going to be talking about the 10 tips. Before you do that, go ahead and make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any of my newest content. I post every single week. By that time you get that done, you've spent 1 minute and 30 seconds asking these people to wait to get to the information that you're getting to. Shut up and get into the information right away. Stop doing that. A lot of people do this, like nobody gives a flip about your $150 intro that you spent on Fiverr. Nobody cares, like X-nay that. Quit asking for people to do something for you before you've ever given them anything. So yeah, that's I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, I love it. I love it. And now I have unfortunately not had as much time to dive down your particular rabbit hole as I did Malcolm's when I found him and asked him to come on the show like a year ago. But I will say that if you're communicating this passion, especially about the segment that you serve, it is not even remotely surprising to me about why you've been so wildly successful and why you have 83,000 people subscribe to your channel. John, I'm curious to ask you a question. So we talk about niches on here all the time. In terms of real estate agents, what do you like? I know that you and I have talked about niches, and I know that you believe in niches, but how would you say that social marketing fits into a niche?
That's a really difficult one, but I think really, well, in a way, it totally fits into what Christina's just pointed out. If you're in a local area, it could be, let's take Northern Nevada. Northern Nevada has a lot of really quality golf courses. has a lot of people moving from different areas of California and other to northern Nevada. Well, just talk about, you could be a real estate with a focus around skiing and golf courses, or it could be just a particular type of house or a particular segment. And that's what all your social media and all your video, and video really is a form of social media. That's what you concentrate on. It's a bit like, I think you said, Christina, is that you got to get away from the spaghetti on the wall approach. I think that was the key word you said, wasn't it? And as soon as you got away from the spaghetti concept, it got a lot more successful. And all right, that's what the phrase you used, wasn't it?
Yes, that actually came from Daryl Eves. He's now my YouTube coach. He actually even wrote about me in his latest book, The YouTube Formula. I'm actually a section in his book. So yeah, he said that, and that's most YouTubers. They think, well, it's about real estate, so I'm a real estate channel, I'll just go ahead and make a video on it. And they always say there's riches and niches. So just like you have to focus in on something. There's an agent that has been doing a channel that focuses with over 55 communities, and she's been doing really well. That's one of those things, like, is one specific thing. She's speaking to one specific audience, and those people will watch every single video because they're looking to retire soon, and they will continue to watch for years to come because they're going to be like, what did I miss out on because I picked this community? So yeah, so you just got to find that community of people that you really want to speak to, and the riches will be in the niches.
I just want to ask a quick question, because you concentrate.
Is it a four-parter?
It's not a four-parter, no. He's been sarcastic there. I like to point out your questions have been getting longer. On your channel, you talk about manufacturing homes, and what's the other type? I forgot.
I talk about manufactured, modular. Tiny homes.
Yeah, modular and manufactured. In England. England is pretty snotty, but also America has its snottiness as well. It's just hidden a little bit. There seems to be a lot, because I actually, to really overcome this housing problem, we really got to really get serious about manufacturing homes in mass numbers. So really isn't, but I think it's held back by a kind of inbuilt snobbery about the whole area of manufactured or modified homes. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think because people's perception of what manufactured homes were in their mind when they were kids, and they see something like manufactured home parks where you see one right after another, and I can see where that comes from. But if they were to walk onto a manufactured home lot and go inside them now, they'd be like, I could live here easily, I could do this, in their brain, they think it's one thing because that's what they remember from like the 80s and early 90s, and they've improved exponentially. And with a modular home, it is a regular traditional stick-built home. Just the walls and everything else are put together in a factory. They put it up just with regular builders and everything else. It just gets put together a lot quicker because all those components have already been pre-assembled at a factory. There's no difference with a modular home. Sometimes they're even built to better specifications than a traditional built home and a higher standard. So there's nothing wrong with a modular home. There's nothing wrong with a manufactured home, especially if rent in your area is more expensive than it would be for a mortgage payment than it would be for a manufactured home. And one of the biggest misnomers that most people have about manufactured homes is that they feel like they have to have a chattel loan. But if you own the land underneath it, you can roll your land and your manufactured home into one loan, and you can have a 30-year fixed rate mortgage on that loan, on that house. So you just have to know the right people that know about that, and don't ever get financed at the actual place that you buy your manufactured home. Talk to other people, because their job is to make money. So find somebody else that will help you out and talk to you about the numbers.
It was a very focused question, Robert.
It was indeed. Well, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming up on the 53 or 54 minute mark, so we're gonna discontinue the. We're gonna roll on.
No more YouTube questions, man. I can talk about YouTube until I'm purple.
I think that we're gonna have to.
You're gonna have to come back later on.
I think we have to segment our shows off. I did want to add one thing. So from a digital market perspective, because I'm more of a data scientist, it's how I approach my job, Kristina. And so I pay a lot of attention to facts and figures. The two most profitable SEO clients I've had in the last decade have both been people that focused on a specific type of home. And in both cases, their return on SEO has been 50 to 100 to 1. These are people that are in the top half a percentile in terms of income makers inside the real estate industry. They each make probably $1 million a year, if not more, off websites dedicated to a single type of home that they sell. Now, they both sell in big areas. They just don't focus on all the types of homes. And for those of you who are listening to the show, if you ever have a moment, go look up Paul Kaplan. Paul Kaplan is a guy in Palmdale, or Diane Williams. Each of these people focus on modern homes, one on country club homes, and they both make a bloody mint. It's just a simple fact that it's easier to market. People believe in your credibility because that's all that you do. So when they have a modern home and they're thinking of listing it for $1 million, they're not going to go to the agent that seems to sell everything. They're just not. They're going to go to Paul Kaplan because all he does is modern homes. So become the expert in your area before everybody else does. That's my advice. In a single type of property or a single area or a single neighborhood, like Christoph, he's Beverly Hills. All he ever says, Beverly Hills. It's all that's ever off his lips is Beverly Hills. Been that way for 10 years. At this point, he's the Beverly Hills guy. So thank you so much for coming on, Kristina. I know John and I really, really deeply appreciate it. And I hope that you'll consider coming back on the show at some point.
Sure, absolutely.
Lovely. John, anything else you want to add before we turn off here?
Let's wrap it up, and we'll see you next week with another great guest and another great interview. See you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye.